5 Live Formula One.
Welcome to Monaco and welcome to the glitziest, most glamorous location for our Checkered Flag podcast. You join me, Rosanna Tennant, sitting in a 9-seater minibus alongside the 1996 Formula One World Champion Damon Hill, who feels right at home, I'm sure, and our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin. And we are heading to the airport, aren't we, gentlemen? Because it's a little bit tricky getting out of Monaco after the Grand Prix. Damon, are you feeling comfortable, ready to analyse what we've just seen?
Well, traffic is the watchword, isn't it, in Monaco? And the racing, of course, they brought in this regulation to get round this problem of not being able to overtake and everyone following each other. But it did actually add a little bit of jeopardy and a certain amount of uncertainty. But unfortunately, it didn't resolve the actual overtaking on the track problem. But I thought it was tense nonetheless. I thought it was exciting. But we're certainly not going anywhere at the moment. We're stuck in a tunnel.
No, it's traffic paradise, isn't it, for us, Harry, heading to the airport. Did you enjoy your Monaco Grand Prix weekend experience?
Sorry, say that again, Rosanna, because I'm all the way at the back of the bus.
Someone's got to bring up the rear.
Well, they say come to Monaco, they say glamour, they say glitz, and there certainly is a bit of that, but I'm not sure we get...
Come on, Harry. No one is going to have any sympathy for you. We've all had a fantastic weekend in the most spectacular location probably on Earth.
It is. Everyone, every year we have the same conversation, don't we, about the racing, but let's not forget, on Saturday, you get one of the best qualifyings of the year. You're in one of the most glamorous locations. It doesn't feel real sometimes when you're here. So it really is a special place. I understand why it remains on the Formula One calendar, all the history around it. And I'm pleased that we are trying to find ways to spice certain things up. But as we'll get into, there were some pros and cons.
So, if you listen carefully, you might hear producer Paddy gear-changing expertly in our minibus. But hopefully we can get to the end of the podcast before we have to go and check in for our flight home. So, taking a step back then, Damon, you had a bit of a sort of mention of it just there. There was this two-stop strategy. And I think it was actually more about 3 sets of tyres than 2 stops.
Yeah, so there's a limited allocation, and some people had burned up some of their options during the race for the race. But I think that inevitably your whole race is going to be dictated by where you qualify. That's always been the case here. Track position is king. And getting pole position, which is what Lando did, meant that they were in a very strong position. But the great thing about this race, I have to say, is it wasn't two McLarens at the sharp end. We had 3 different marks in the top 4. We had Max Verstappen there. In fact, Max got promoted by the fact that Lewis Hamilton got dropped. So otherwise we'd have 2 Ferraris and 2 McLarens, and that would have been quite an interesting combination as well. But the track position is key, and it meant that as the race progressed and we were looking at Max Verstappen, we were thinking, well, when is he going to come in? And then we were trying to rack our brains as to what the game plan was. And the game plan was quite obviously, they were hoping that the race would be called, stopped and the restart or something like that late in the race. But they were all very good boys and nothing dramatic happened. And I'm afraid he had to come in and do a pit stop, but he put up a good fight. But it was, as you say, it was a strategy that was dictated by their allocation of tyres that they'd ended up with through the weekend. But we were still wondering what was going to happen during the race, and I thought that added a little bit of tension.
So taking a step back then, Harry, we haven't said who won yet. Shall I announce it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, it was Lando Norris. Absolute blinder. What a weekend for him. Pole position and the win. And we will get into his race very, very shortly. But Harry, then, did you enjoy it? Because as Damon says, we kind of still were a little unsure as to what was going on right until the end.
I took a bit of time after the race to think, did I enjoy that? Was that good? And I think I did find it entertaining because we had to really work hard and think about what was going to happen. But I wonder, was that just a result, obviously, of this being brand new and us really not knowing how it was going to work out? So there is that uncertainty, which was good then for the entertainment. I think if I play devil's advocate here, for the sporting perspective, I think there will be a lot of people who are quite anti about what we saw over 78 laps in Monaco. There are some contrived team tactics when you think about it. The two Williams cars, the two Racing Bulls, the second car backing up the rest of the field, driving slowly on purpose, and technically manipulating the outcome of a race. So I think there will be a lot of people going, oh, I understand why.
A bit like cycling, though, isn't it? I mean, it is a team sport, and there's nothing in the regulations about doing that or using or driving slowly. I mean, you can drive too slowly. In fact, Charles Leclerc accused Lando of driving slowly, and then Lando accused Max of driving slowly, and it was a lot of people driving. It sounds paradoxical that you're in a race, but actually the complaint was that everyone was going slowly.
I will say this, though. I don't think we should write it off completely yet, because 2026 is only around the corner. The cars are going to be 10 centimetres narrower, 20 centimetres shorter. We're going to have active aero in there as well. The field spread should be more in terms of the difference between the fastest cars and the slowest cars, rather than what we have right now, which is an incredibly close field. So I think that is going to make these rules that we have implemented this year better. I think they've got a better chance of giving us actual on-track overtakes and a little less contrived team tactics. So as producer Paddy just stalled the van in our tunnel, where we're moving at a snail's pace, we should add, because the traffic is absolutely backed up. I think, just to finish my point, I think that will make these rules better. But you know what? Overall, I'm quite pleased we tried something different. It gave us a lot of unknowns coming into the weekend and on Sunday, and for that, it's a winner in my book.
Well, you're going to have to try and convince the likes of Carlos Sainz and George Russell, who are going to get together with the GPDA and have a think about how they can improve it for next year, because both of them were so anti it. Carlos Sainz even telling me that he thinks it's against the spirit of Formula One and the regulations. He almost queried whether it was within the rules, because as you said, it was sort of manipulating a race result.
But the issue is not the mandatory 3-tyre rule. The issue is the cars are too big for the track. That's the problem. And and I'm sorry, but 5 centimetres, it's going to have to be a lot more than that to increase the amount of overtaking opportunities. The cars are also massively long as well. So, it is a circuit that is a bit of an anachronism, but it's so spectacular. And the qualifying show, I think, has been for a very long time the key thing. And unless you want to do without the race,
which is never going to happen.
That's what George said. Maybe we should just have qualifying and calling it a day there.
Well, I find it interesting that the chairman of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, George Russell, who was so frustrated behind one driver, I think almost to highlight what he thought of the rules, basically did an illegal overtake and didn't bother giving the place back, so he'd rather take the penalty that came his way. And also, Mr. Sainz, I would like to remind you of the time you won in Singapore a couple of years ago, where you used DRS to your advantage and very much used strategy to keep yourself ahead. So I wonder how much of these comments are made in the heat of the moment after the race, and whether once they take time to reflect, there will be reasonable understanding as to why we did what we did.
I think they shouldn't complain too much. I can remember watching the cars at the end of this race. It's a challenge against the circuit, and I can remember watching the Parc Fermé, and the drivers at the end of the race were absolutely exhausted. In fact, I just remember watching them, and they just sat in the car for about a minute or two before they even attempted to get out. They were drained. They were having to, it worked really hard just to keep the cars out of the barrier. So, the physical demands on racing, when they're racing at a prescribed pace around here, yes, you need to concentrate, but they're not, there's not the same demands on the driver. And I can imagine them getting frustrated and bored, because they're just going, well, I can't get past this guy, and there's nothing we can do. For how long is the race? Nearly 2 hours, what was the actual race time at the end? I can't remember, but it was, it's 78 times 1 minute 14.
He keeps challenging you to maths, doesn't he?
I'm dyslexic with numbers, so I'm not the man to do the maths, Damon.
Well, George Russell said it was like chess. It was not racing, and he said actually chess was more exciting. So we will wait to see how the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix comes together next year, of course. But let's go back to our pole sitter and race winner, a lights to flag victory for Lando Norris. What a weekend. And boy, didn't he need it. It has been a long time coming. That pole position, last one he took was back in Melbourne, which feels like a long time ago. It's nice to see him smiling again, Harry.
It is. Well, it started in qualifying, didn't it? And nicking pole position away on his final lap, just as the checkered flag fell on Q3. And then it was a huge victory. Closes to within 3 points of Oscar Piastri's teammate, who is still the championship leader. But, strategy aside, pit stops, tyres aside, on the whole, Lando Norris controlled that race. Even at the end, when Verstappen was doing his thing at the front, Norris was managing the pace to Charles Leclerc behind and absorbing the pressure that was coming with it, because Leclerc was trying to force Lando Norris into any which way he could force a mistake, and that can so easily happen, as Damon alludes to. So I think it's a huge victory. I wonder if this is now the momentum swing that Lando Norris needed to revitalise himself.
That's what it looked like to me, Harry. I think he must have had a little bit of self-reflection, because he was being a little bit picked apart by the commentators, and I have to say I was one of them. I think that we saw weakness, we saw a fragility, or what was perceived fragility in Lando, and I think he was a little bit shocked that Oscar had come out fighting quite as well as he had done, and took the shine off some of the Lando Norris's undeniable talent and position in that team, and also in the sport. But I think this weekend he's put all that right. I think he's shown, listen, this is what I can do on a perfect weekend. And he out-qualified Charles by 1/10 of a second. Now that doesn't sound very much, but it's actually quite a big margin. And to Oscar, it's never been more than a couple of hundredths. So the differences are tiny, and it will come down to a mind game. It will come down to which driver is on his top form at every race, and there's a long way to go yet.
And to do it in Monaco, to get the pole and to get the win when it is so difficult to do,
and the fastest lap,
and the fastest lap. I mean, that must just feel so good.
You think so? I always think, and look, I'm not a driver, but Damon's the one, but I think I said it on air, is, when you come into Formula One as a driver, surely you want to get a pole position, win a race, win in Monaco, and win a world championship. If you can do one, maybe two,
if you can do two of them,
even all four, surely then you are well on your way to...
I've never thought my world championship was any less because I didn't win Monaco, but I think my career was.
Yeah. But I think it's something... I think Charles Leclerc said after winning Monaco, he was like, look, I've done almost everything I want to achieve in Formula One now that I've won Monaco. I know it means a bit more for him because it's his home race, literally, but the only thing left for Charles Leclerc, as far as he's concerned, is to take a championship. And in this year, this is a real legitimate chance for Lando Norris to take his first world title.
I don't think we should diminish the achievement of getting it round this circuit in 1 minute 9, the fastest ever lap round Monaco circuit, and have also do it on Friday and keep your head together, and also with all the attention and all the razzmatazz and all the complications of being in a very crowded place with everyone wanting your attention. It's exhausting. Monaco is a very, very draining weekend for all the drivers. And the
commentators.
And the commentators. Yeah, God, no, as I said, I don't think...
Lando doesn't have to go to the airport in a nine-seater.
But to polish it off, to actually get pole position, is an enormous achievement. It is one of the biggest challenges in sport, driving a car around here, leaving no margin and getting pole position.
He's had to dig very deep. He's had to change habits. He's come off social media, and people might be going, what's that going to do? But it's obviously helped him, Harry, to sort of dial himself in, block out the noise, and achieve what he's setting out to achieve, which is obviously always being at the head of the grid.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, these guys, they're Formula One drivers, and they are placed upon a pedestal as a result of that, but they are normal human beings who are not going to be immune to what they read on social media and what they see. And right now it is easier than ever to shout about a driver, good or bad, and for them to actually see it. So you've got to be built not only strong physically in this game, but mentally too, right?
I mean, Lando is not Oscar. Oscar is quite happy to probably, say, he doesn't put himself out there. Lando loves it. Lando revels in all the attention, and he's good at it. And he's.
Do you think? I think he's shy.
You think he's shy?
Yeah, I think he's shy.
Yeah, okay, well, I think he understands. To me, he's entertaining. I think as an individual, he's intriguing and entertaining and funny.
He's got flair, I think, hasn't he?
And I mean, for example, the film he was asked about, the new F1 film. I can't remember the name of it. What's it called? Anyway.
F1 The the movie?
F1 the movie.
Yeah, F1 the movie. F1 the movie.
Brad
And he
Pitt's
said,
best bits?
I saw a quote from him which I love, which was basically the only thing that really matters was I was brilliant.
Well, I was able to catch up with Lando Norris after his win. What a moment in his career. And of course, maybe achieving a childhood dream. So I wanted to know what that was like.
I still don't think the emotion of winning in Monaco is probably settled in just yet. I think obviously the joy of winning, I feel. I think the knowledge of winning in Monaco, the history, the prestige of it, the specialness of the event is probably something I'll realize probably later tonight. The place that I've won, and I've brought a lot of joy to a lot of the team who have also dreamt of winning here in Monaco. So special for me, but just as special for a lot of other people. And I'm glad that I got to bring it to them. But of course, a big moment for me. My family, my mum and dad are here, so they were emotional, much more than me, but in a good way. And very proud of how the whole weekend's gone.
How much did you need this, just for a bit of a reset and a bit of a boost?
I mean, I need every win. I want every win. I need every win. But I've definitely had some trickier moments over the last couple months. Not on Sundays specifically. So I've never doubted myself on a Sunday. Today proved that, and I think the whole season has proved that. But those trickier moments. I think yesterday was the day that probably made me happier than today did. I had more emotion yesterday than I had today, which tells something. But just very happy with the whole weekend in general.
That was Lando Norris, our latest Monaco Grand Prix winner. And I think after he'd spoken to me, he went to talk to the rest of the press. And in the press conference, he sort of said, actually, when you were talking about the lap record, he's hoping that's something that lasts a very long time. And he also said that actually it's really special. Hopefully he can tell his children one day that he won the Monaco Grand Prix. So seeing a bit of an emotional side.
Yes, I've heard him mention children. I mean, how old is he now? I mean, he's thinking ahead, which is all very interesting. But yes, so Charles has obviously got the same tale he can tell. He's won the Monaco Grand Prix, but as a Monegasque resident, so he did a great weekend as well. And I think it does show that there are certain types of drivers who love these very challenging, on the limit, intense qualifying sessions, and Charles is definitely one of those.
And Charles loves a street circuit. He absolutely loves threading the needle. He loves Baku as well, doesn't he, Harry? But I feel like even with this little bit of jeopardy with the two-stop strategy, Charles was resigned to the fact that really his weekend got away yesterday when he wasn't able to take pole, which I have to say surprised quite a lot of us, given how strong he'd been in practice.
I think he was fuming that he didn't get it, considering he topped every single practice session. But also a really weird weekend, because he came into Monaco really downplaying his chances and thinking, almost like it sounded like he didn't really want to race the Ferrari. It was going to be that bad. So I think when he steps back, he'll realise what a good weekend this was. It's still his best result of the year so far in Grand Prix terms for him and Ferrari. So, look, from second place to finish there, to manage all the bizarreness that came from the strategy, I think they can look and go, that's a job well done from Ferrari, because at the moment they need to just consistently score some good points. Look, it was only a few races ago they were 30 seconds behind, finishing 7th and 8th. So to be second and up there on quali and race pace, I think it's a good sign for them. But of course, Monaco, very much an outlier track. Another test will be next week in Spain.
Of course, we go again so quickly, don't we? The third round of this triple header coming quickly next weekend in Spain. But let's hear from Charles Leclerc then, racing on home soil but unable to make it a back-to-back win.
Yeah, I think if you do a step back, then it's been very positive for us. Since the beginning of the season, we've been struggling massively, and this weekend we were a lot more competitive. So there's positives to take out of it. The disappointment was very big yesterday. Today I resetted, and at the end of the day I can't be infinitely disappointed with yesterday. Now it's past, and considering today, I think we did the best we could from the position we started, and I don't have any regrets from today. So I think it's the best we could have done.
Coming into the weekend, you were so pessimistic, talking about not even making the top 10. What went well then? Because it's always difficult to not know why you're fast.
I'm pretty sure I know why we were fast at the end. didn't know that it was going to be that much of a strength here, but I think on bumpy tracks and where the curb riding is so important like here, we seem to have an advantage over the others. We don't have the performance in the car, but the fact that the car is taking well those bumps helps us to maybe rebalance the performance a little bit. So I think that's why we were so strong this weekend. Unfortunately, this applies only in Monaco and nowhere else.
That was Charles Leclerc, P2 for him, and that Ferrari going well on bumpy tracks, but I fear that next weekend it might not be the same unless Barcelona's introduced some molehill since I was last there.
Well, no, there is the technical directive, which they're introducing. They're stiffening up the front wings. I think Fred Vasseur and the team principal Ferrari are kind of putting a bit of hope into that. Speaking to a few people in the paddock this weekend, the general consensus, I think, is that actually it's not going to do too much in terms of a massive shake-up of the order. But people are pushing the boundaries in the technical regulations, and if the wings are flexing, they're flexing for a reason. So naturally, by stiffening that up, there is going to be some performance there. So we'll see if that, rather than the molehills, brings any change to the order.
Do you know what that actually reminds me? Sorry, I didn't say earlier when we were talking about George Russell being cross about the situation today. He said maybe we just introduce sprinklers and every car has a button they can press that turns on a sprinkler around the track. I feel like facetious was probably the word I'd use. Yeah, he's trying to be witty.
Tin tax.
Say again?
Tin tax, that's what they used to do in wacky races.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll just go back to that Lego race in Miami that we did, right? We'll just sort of amalgamate all of these, all the best gimmicks we can into one race.
And we know, don't we? A sprinkle. All we needed in the Monaco Grand Prix was a smattering of rain, and it suddenly would have been incredibly intense and exciting. So I don't think we should be too harsh on it. It has thrown up some good races, but anyway, as far as the technical regulation change and next week's race goes, I think a lot of people have done anyway the thing with the flexible front wing, because that was the way forward. Do you remember Toto Wolff saying, "I can't believe we were so stupid. We should have," or actually it was James Allison, wasn't it? It was saying, it was like a revelation last year. He said, "Why were we so stupid? It was so obvious." I think that was the flexi wings that they needed to do. So now that everybody's doing it, if they bring in a regulation to stiffen it up, it'll just affect everyone the same.
So yes, it'll be this sort of status quo. Completing your podium then, it is the current championship leader, still leading the championship, Oscar Piastri, holding on by 3 points. He just didn't find his rhythm, did he, this weekend? That little moment that he hit the wall in FP2, it just didn't seem to click for him this weekend. And he was even honest enough to say after qualifying yesterday, he'd hit the wall more times this weekend than he has in his whole career. Why didn't it click for him?
I don't know, if I'm fully honest, Rosanna. I think.
Well, should we hear from him?
Well, yeah, let's do that first.
Let's do that. That was kind of what I asked him in the media pen. So, Oscar, over to you.
I was struggling to be comfortable with the car in practice. Obviously, crashing in FP2 was not ideal. Fortunate that I could get back out there, but it's just. I think I said after qualifying, I think I've hit more things this weekend than I've hit in my whole career, and it's unusual for me to be so messy and making so many mistakes. So yeah, some things for sure to review and think about how we could have done a bit better this weekend, but to still end up on the podium is not a terrible result.
You've obviously got a car that works well at all the tracks. If you look down the barrel of all the tracks coming your way, if the car's kind of fine, which are the ones where you think you may shine at?
I hope all of them, but let's wait and see. I think our competitors are probably going to change, like their performance is going to change a bit through the next few races. Barcelona's a much faster circuit, so we'll see if Red Bull are quick once again. But I'm confident wherever we go. I was confident going into this weekend, and it didn't quite turn out how I wanted. But I think for me, I'm not doubting the pace that I've got and that the team have got. It's just this weekend we didn't capitalise on it.
And just to pick up on the competitors that you mentioned whose performance may change, could you tell me who you think that'll be?
I think Red Bull will be a bit more competitive again.
Because of the tech directive?
No, just because of the speed of the track. They've been quick at all the high-speed circuits this year, and Barcelona's a pretty quick circuit, so I think they'll be a bit stronger there than they were here, for sure. So let's fancy.
Oscar Piastri, P3, completing the podium here in Monaco. And just a little update on how we're getting on our journey to the airport. It's rather beautiful.
We've
if you
taken
can...
the scenic route. I know that.
Yeah, I know. Are you feeling queasy, David?
No, it's very nice. I prefer to be this.
You-
I prefer this one than the motorway. This is fantastic.
Are we
We're
going to
seeing-
make our flight? That's the question.
Oh, dear.
Well, if we don't, what a view.
Oh, well, that's a very positive way of looking at it, Damon. Quite keen to have a bank holiday.
Obviously, completely lost on people on radio listening to us on the podcast. But I mean, as we look out across the coast road we're on to the harbour and the bays we're going through, there's all the boats, and of course, it was. I've never seen Monaco so full of massive yachts before.
It really
there were
was, wasn't it?
They were literally littered all over the bay as well. They couldn't get into the harbour.
And there are even more now as we go along the coastline. And you keep on seeing helicopters as well. Everybody living the luxe life, going back from Monaco to Nice to fly home, having had a lovely weekend. But not for us, it's the 9-seater. So Piastri's still got the lead of the championship. Still pretty cool, even though he was a little bit ruffled, I'd say, this weekend. But
Yeah.
it's just consistency, right? He just needs to keep on delivering at least podiums, and then all would be well for his campaign.
Well, the idea, you've got to bag points, right? But, I mean, the lead has been cut to 3 points, hasn't it, Damon? So that's not what Oscar would have liked. And it's kind of two maybe uncharacteristic weekends in a row. Imola breaking early into Tamburello and allowing Verstappen to make that amazing move, but allowing for it to even be on the cards. And then finding the wall in practice in Monaco and just sort of looking a little bit ragged.
Maybe we're looking at the same effect that affected Lando when he was leading the championship, is that once you're actually holding the baby, it suddenly becomes a whole different game. And I've been trying to explain this when I've been asked about the drivers. You can't look at their form and say that is a fait accompli, that is you're expected to get the same performance every time. Once you're talking about a world championship, a whole new world of issues starts coming into play. And leading the championship, if you start thinking yourself, you wake up in the morning and go, I'm leading the world championship, I actually could win the world championship, oh my God, that can affect you. And both these guys, this is really their first time at it, so and they're in the same team. So I think there's this dynamic that we're going to see played out throughout the year, and there will be more and more pressure. And so I think that Oscar maybe overplayed his hand and slightly went at it a little bit too aggressively this weekend, whereas I don't know if you noticed, but Lando seemed to stay out of trouble the whole weekend and just got on with his job and seemed to sort of sneak up on it, and then finally came to the last few runs in qualifying, and there he was.
So do you want to be hunter for longer than hunted sooner?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to stay out in front. It's a bit like golf, leading a championship for 4 days the pressure at the end of it is it's ridiculous. So in a way it is easier to kind of close in on the guys, but you're not going to willingly put yourself in second place. But Lando, as you said, is only 3 points behind now, so he's really hot on Oscar's heels. And yeah, it's going to ebb and flow, I think, for the rest of the year.
I mean, brilliant for us. But also, let's remember, these are two guys going for a Drivers' World Championship for the first time in Formula One. Lando Norris has the experience of being in Formula One longer than Oscar Piastri but Piastri has this amazing storyline of winning every championship he's been in the first season, Formula Renault, Formula 3, Formula 2, being snatched away from Alpine by McLaren, getting that chance to Formula 1. So there's two great storylines going on here, and that all plays a factor.
And also, coming into this year, Lando Norris said he's now kind of got the skills to fight for a championship after having a go at it last year with Max Verstappen. So really interesting to see how this one plays out. We've got so many more races to go. A third of the way through now. It's going fast, actually.
It is, but it's still a long old season. We've got sprint races to throw into the mix as well. So there's plenty more points on the board to come.
So that is your podium. Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. And Max Verstappen. Well, Damon, you were scratching your head a little bit, weren't you, during the race, trying to work out what Verstappen and Red Bull were doing, because he was leading the race and then it all kind of clicked. We realised perhaps he was waiting for the ultimate Monaco stoppage, a red flag, and then he could have changed his tyres and got away scot-free, essentially.
Yeah, so the first part, he started on the hard, didn't he? So he was one of the few people on the hard, and the others were on the medium. So it was it was obvious that he was going to try to go as long as possible, but then he had to switch because you've got to use different compounds, so he went hard medium, and the medium was when everyone pitted, he could find himself in the front of the pack. And I think the strategy was exactly that. We're going to go long and we're going to try and get to the front of the pack after they've stopped and stay there and see if something happens. But it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. We didn't have a safety car. We didn't really. I mean, we had 2 VSCs.
Yeah, but Alonso retired. He pulled off the road, so that didn't really require anything. Gasly actually managed to make his Alpine drive back to the pits on 3 wheels.
To the Williams pits.
To the Williams pits, yeah. That closed the pit lane for a bit, but it didn't really cause any drama. Bortoletto was in the wall on turn 1, but he managed to on lap 1, but he managed to get it out of the wall and keep going in the race. So, yeah, there wasn't anything really that played a factor there when it came to a full safety car, at least, which anyone could have manipulated. But Max Verstappen, in the end, it became evident towards the end of the race, just holding on to see if anything would have happened. A red flag would have helped him get the win, but as that was diminishing, the idea of a safety car wouldn't have done much for him either. It just would have put him into 4th anyway, which is where ultimately he finished. So Red Bull tried something, and fair play, you've got to do it, but the gaps were there, and Piastri and McLaren had seen that coming and managed to make sure that they closed that gap of the safety car window to Verstappen. So Red Bull tried it, fair play, wasn't going to happen.
And of course, he came off the back of that incredible win in Imola. This track, in terms of gauging Red Bull's performance, a step on in performance, difficult to say, but I think he's hoping for more of the same in Barcelona, more of the same from Imola style performance.
I think so, but I think after Imola, as we were discussing and have been, we're going to see ebbs and flows. We're going to see McLaren tracks which are fully McLaren and making it difficult to beat them, but then there will be occasions where Max Verstappen and Red Bull, who still do have a good package, just make no bones about that, will come to the party and throw their hand into the mix. Look, if Monaco was a track where you could overtake on, in a normal sense, Max Verstappen would have been right up there challenging for the win. So, again, it's a Monaco-specific thing.
Behind Verstappen then, it was Lewis Hamilton. Pretty average weekend for him, even though a top 5 finished. Isaac Hadjar, a standout performance from him, would you say, given he had a few skirmishes with the wall during the practice sessions, Harry?
What a recovery from Isaac Hadjar, the confidence that he managed to rebuild after bidding it in the wall. He's looked good this season, it has to be said. I think we've been pretty chuffed with Isaac Hadjar so far. He's got more points now than Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson combined. He is the 2nd best Red Bull affiliated driver in the championship standings. So, awkward.
It was actually really nice. I watched Max Verstappen congratulate him and said, really good job today. So he's noting that performance.
He has actually surprised everyone. Probably not himself, but I mean, maybe he has surprised himself. I don't know, but I've been impressed. I've been impressed by almost everything he's done. I mean, there was clearly the horrible thing he went through in Australia, where he made a mistake and actually was in tears and had to be consoled by Anthony Hamilton. And well, he didn't have to be, but he was. And people.
Yes, it's not a rule. He must go to Anthony Hamilton.
He
to
might
be
have
consoled.
to soon with his new role.
Harsh words, for a guy was distraught. Has he got the emotional strength to be a Formula 1 driver and so forth? But he has been amazing since that moment, and he's been strong. And to go around Monaco, biff it into the wall twice, take off the wheel, and not be cowed by that, and to put in a fantastic qualifying performance and a race. Well done.
Worth noting, actually, Liam Lawson played his part in Isaac Hadjar's race, and Racing Bulls really, as we negotiate the tightest left-hander.
That's like a hairpin
sign
in
says
the F1
Moyon
track.
Corniche. I think that means the minor Corniche. We're going on the old roads. There's barely room for our van underneath
Producer
the
Paddy,
cliffs.
take a bow.
And as we talk about narrow streets and Monaco, the Monaco Grand Prix.
Anyway.
Welcome to the Monte Carlo Rally.
Yes, it certainly is. I will say, shout out to Liam Lawson. He made Isaac Hadjar's race. They played the team tactics well. He held up the pack to allow Hadjar to get his 2 stops out of the way, which allowed him to get that good points finish. And I'm pleased Lawson was also rewarded with his first points of the season. First real weekend we've seen Liam Lawson show the speed that we know he's got.
I don't know if he was properly making a point, but he said, I was like, oh, well done, points first time this season. And he sort of said, I've felt the same all season. It just clicked this weekend. So, yeah, it's been a tricky one for him.
I've said it's
this
good performance. I agree. I think he showed well this weekend. You know, it's not a place. It's an intimidating track, and these cars are really fast now. And so, if you've got faint heart, you're not going to be able to perform well at Monaco.
So I think that kind of brings us to a close, actually. An interesting Monaco Grand Prix, food for thought, potential for changes in 2026. It's been a pleasure sharing this weekend with you both, Damon Hill and Harry Benjamin. Final thoughts?
Oh, I enjoyed it. I mean, thank you very much for having me.
Always a pleasure, Damon. Has anybody got a brown paper bag?
Yeah. Keep it way down the window. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Hopefully we make it in one piece to Nice Airport.